Hello, Great America Financial Services. It's good to see you. Welcome to Next Week's Life podcast. It's great to have you on the show. And for all of the folks in the audience, let me introduce you. Got Jennie Fisher, who is the Senior VP and General Manager for Great America Financial Services and the Technology Group. And then you have Tawnya Stone, who is the VP of IT Technology Strategic Partners, right?
Strategic technology, but it's hard to say, honestly. Like,
Yeah, especially when it's early in the morning. So,
agreed.
yeah. So I would characterize for everyone in the audience, basically, Jennie is responsible for the national sales and distribution through the dealer community, the office dealer group or equipment group. And Tawnya, you've been with Great America, and you're responsible for basically all the IT and integrations and partners that basically make the infrastructure work for our community. Is that safe to say, ladies?
That's safe to say.
So
Yep, for me,
welcome.
I'm kind of the customer-facing side of things. So not like IT Great America proper, like to make our wheels run. That's not me. But really as it interfaces with our customers and all of
With our customers, yeah.
all the tools they use.
So it's a pleasure to have you. And, I was thinking about this morning before we got on the show. I was trying to figure out, obviously, when I was responsible for MWA and Forza, that's been some years ago now, but I think that's about the first time that, Tawnya, you and I met doing the integrations with Forza and so on. So that's been about 15, 20 years. Safe to say?
Well, I've only been with Great America 11, but I don't think I was here very long until our paths crossed. So it has been quite a few years. So
And I think our relationship with Great America really kind of grew out of the ability to be able to do financing for our Forza clients and all the integration that came forward. So from my old days to today, thank you very much for getting all of that stuff done. So I'm kind of curious. There are a few things that seem to resonate right now in the marketplace, most of which I think is kind of ad nauseum at this point. People talking about supply chains and all the complications that are coming out of that. But it's a very serious and very uh, risky kind of proposition for the community. So I have a question for both of you from two different perspectives. Number one, you're looking at financial impact for the dealer community when you can't ship. And so I'm kind of curious, especially from both of you, how you see this playing out the rest of this fiscal year or calendar year. And then secondarily, what are you doing on the infrastructure side to assist the community, dealers in particular, that help facilitate a more speedy, if you can, payment or manage the expenses better and the gross margin. So, Jennie, I'll start with you. In the dealer community, the last couple of years have been rough. So what's your take on it, currently, and how do you see this playing out for the rest of the year?
Currently, things are going really well. There seems to be an influx of equipment in the marketplace, and dealers are getting transactions closed and funded. We do expect to be challenged with that through the end of the calendar year, into the first quarter of 2023. And where I see the biggest challenge I see for dealers right now is because of the supply chain issues, right? And the cost of the logistics and getting that equipment delivered, their prices continue to increase on the equipment side. And along with that, when you think about, 98% of the transactions these guys closed are financed. And now we're seeing some dynamics in the marketplace with an increasing cost of funds at a somewhat rapid rate. And so as they close these transactions with a payment, by the time they go to deliver the equipment, they've got it in hand. They're feeling the pinch on both sides of that, right? Because the price has gone up. Some OEMs are not guaranteeing those prices, of which they were when they ordered the equipment, and then on the finance side. So we're doing everything we can to continue to navigate the interest rate environment and help dealers in every way we can possible there.
So along those same lines, Tawnya, when you combine what, some of the input that Jennie just provided for us, there are seemingly, interesting problems that kind of bubble out of that. How do you pay salespeople? How do you pay them quickly? How do they manage the fleet better? how do you get the data to be able to make sure that you don't make any mistakes? So Tawnya, I'm kind of curious, you're working hand in hand, like you said before, facing off with the clients. What are you seeing from your perspective that really, let's call it the top 2 or 3 things that you need to do from a technology side to help mitigate some of these issues?
The thing that I'm seeing dealers do in this period, which it's kind of like if you have to take a bad situation, how do you make it better? They're really focusing on their own efficiencies and how are they able to do more with less. And so a lot of focus on integrations. Not that people haven't been focused in the past, but they're really taking the time to look at their own operations and figure out how do I move data better and how do I move it faster? And integrations is many times the answer for that. And I think when things are going well, and they are selling a whole lot of equipment, it's really hard to step back and take the time to kind of clean your own house a little bit. And so I think this has provided an opportunity for some dealers to really say, okay, we're not able to do and execute the things we would want to be doing necessarily. So let's focus on our own internal efficiencies and how do we just get things so that it's really seamless, really accurate. They can't afford to make mistakes at this point. And that's really where technology and integrations can help them.
It's interesting because I know Great America for some years, as we talked a little bit earlier. You guys have always been, as a company, culturally committed to innovation, right? I've seen you always ahead of the curve, even as far back as Forza. So when we were trying to build something and we didn't even know half the time what we were building, you dove in. And so that's a pretty impressive culture. And when you look at today, again, from where we were then to where we are today, how do you prioritize which partners are going to be the partners that are going to drive greater revenue or going to help that efficiency? How does Great America do that? So, I'll start with you, Jennie, if you don't mind, and then come back to Tawnya.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to let Tawnya jump in and correct me, but I would say right now, looking at where do we see the opportunities to help our dealers, right? Who's got the newest solutions out there on the integration side that we think can make a strong impact and a quick impact to our dealers, and then we have to evaluate how quickly Great America can act on that and bring it to the marketplace. And so I don't know, Tawnya, you jump in. You're working closely with our vendor partners out there, right? But it is somewhat of a juggling act as we go through quarter by quarter and evaluating and prioritizing what we're focusing on.
I would say the way I think about prioritization is really what's important to our customers. And so the very first step in understanding what's important to them is really understand our customers. Now, we're never going to understand their business as well as them. It's their business. But one of the things that I think that we do a good job at is really understanding what are the business problems our customers are facing. I mean, yes, we're a finance company. However, we're also business people. And so I think if you look at a lot of the solutions that have been developed, have nothing to do with financing in some cases. And so it's interesting if you really try to understand the problem you're trying to solve and then seeing what technology you can apply to it rather than what technology is out there, what problem can I solve? I think it's going to just be a better outcome. And so I think we just try really hard to understand the direction our dealers are going and how can we support them in that and what do we need to build in order to make that successful.
When you look at the current marketplace, we're all hearing about IT services and MNS and all of this over and over and over again. What percentage of the dealer population do you think is actually getting it right today? And
Very low.
very low. Okay. Well, I appreciate that because I agree with you. I don't see it happening as quickly as it should. So what do you think we need to do as a community, and what is Great America doing to kind of shake that tree to say, you have to do this? So, Tawnya?
I guess my perspective is being successful in the imaging channel and the characteristics that that takes are not always the same characteristics it takes to be successful selling managed IT. And so applying the same practices and compensation and decision making and just lifting it up and putting it into IT, I don't think that has been successful. It takes a different business plan. And so I think the companies that have been successful, they recognize that and they don't try to meld them and be one. They're sort of operating them in silos, and each silo is very successful. The question is, how sustainable is that in the long term? Maybe it is. I mean, maybe that's just the way it needs to go. But I don't think that kind of the mentality that dealers have used to manage their imaging business can just lift and pick and put it in the IT world and be successful, I guess. Well, and just to add on, I think that's how I think like collaborants, like we recognize that. And so that's a perfect example of um, imaging dealer. How can we help you be successful? Because we're thinking about this another way. And so that allows them that transition time to kind of put the foundation that they need in place to kind of run that business because it's not the same business.
Right. And I want to come back to that, but Jenny, do you have something to add to that?
I was just going to say, I knew Tawnya would bring the business logic back into the conversation. I was going straight for the shiny object, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's interesting again because, and again, gut check me on this, but I think it's safe to say that there's an erosion at the top line for a dealer, right? So maybe they were doing 100 million last year and they're struggling to keep $100 million worth of the core business. So when you lose that top line, with the core business, and the margins are different at the top line, then what's your advice? What's your counsel for a dealer that says, well, I need to recapture $5 million at that margin. That means I got to capture 10 million at a different margin. And how do they translate that into an actual strategy, that they can in fact get that revenue back?
I think diversification is the key. I mean, we do that in our financial portfolios and in our personal lives. So I think it's very smart to do that from a business perspective. I think the mistake is just assuming that all the things you did to run your business successfully over here in, product set number one will automatically apply in product set number two. So I think as dealers look to diversify, they really need to check the assumptions that they're making and make sure that they are still accurate in that new product line of whatever it is. I think going from imaging to IT, there are different things you got to do. And so owning that there are different things and how do you manage those different things? Don't just try to add a product set into your current existing infrastructure and assume it's going to be successful.
That's a great comment because again, it's this shiny object. Back to Jenny's point, right? So people are out there selling some shiny object, and it sounds good, tastes good, looks good, but maybe not. So Jenny, when both of you look at the community today, the industry today, what gets you really excited? Every time I talk with you, you're very reasonable and positive about the industry, which is great. But what really gets you jazzed up right now for the rest of this year? Like, yeah, that's good.
well, for one thing, I feel like things are getting back on track as far as continuing to navigate through the pandemic. But what gets me really excited is thinking about that diversification, right? And a lot of these dealers evolving the business lines, right? They understand that output is declining and it's never going to come back to where it was. It's not going away, but how can they diversify into complementary avenues, right, to their core and continue to build on those revenues and get back to that uninterrupted growth? And I just think that we've seen a lot of real focus in the last 2 years of dealers that have gotten serious about that. Thinking of our collaborants product alone, we've onboarded, I think, 15 dealers, office equipment technology players through the pandemic.
Wow.
And some of them are, it takes a little while to start building up your base and understand what you're doing and how you're going to market to sell that solution. But some of these guys, having only been at it 8 to 12 months, are really making some strong progress. That gets me excited because I can finance that for them, right? I can finance that and bill their service and supplies on the side. And
So, when you're part of the consortium, you're a founding member of the consortium. You see the Executive Connection Summit coming down the road. You're a phenomenal supporter of that and sponsor, which we appreciate. Last year, we saw things out of the Executive Connection Summit like the Microsoft AI stuff. And now I know Microsoft is going to be doing that again. Does Great America plan on being able to get it fully engaged with financing some of those things for those dealers, whether it be the hardware side or the software side? So is that a big part of your next chapter for evolution?
Absolutely, but I think it goes deeper than that, right? It's understanding there's a lot of really good solution providers in the consortium and understanding what they do so that we can think about how we can come together and add them to our mix of partners, right? To continue to bring value to the dealer community. And so that gets me really excited. And then we'll figure out how to finance it. As long as it makes sense and it makes money, we'll figure out a way to do it.
Awesome. Tanya, you feel the same way
I
about
would
the
just say
Microsoft stuff?
absolutely. I would say that the word of the day is diversification. I mean, I think from a Great America perspective, we want to diversify our portfolio as well with other products. And I think one of the values that we provide is we can help vet out some of those solutions. We have the dealer's best interests in mind. We do not want them to offer a solution that is not going to be successful for the long term. And so I think a lot of times dealers use us as sort of a gut check of, hey, is this a path we should go down? Because if Great America is not willing to finance it, then maybe we need to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like maybe are there tweaks? Are there other partners? And so it's not just when we evaluate things, it's from a Great America perspective. It's really to protect our customers, the dealer, to make sure that they're, investing in a solution that's going to provide viability long term.
So Tanya, how did you grow up into this job? So were you always a techie person? What's the
Yes,
history? Okay,
I am nerdy.
you're so basically you're a techie nerd.
I am.
Okay, she says that, but she has a very creative background as well.
Yeah. So
Well, it's a mix.
all right. So tell us a little bit about that background.
I actually started as a developer, so a hardcore nerd, but I really found that I like the business side of technology a little bit better. But I do think the value that I tend to bring is that I can understand the technology, foundation part, but then kind of my interest and what jazzes me up is solving people's problems. I'm a people solver problem. Um, just ask my kids. I try to meddle and help them solve their problems as well, whether they like it or not. So, I mean, I think it's just kind of that marrying the two together of the technology and the business side.
Well, you're fun. I mean,
A
I
fun
mean,
nerd. I love it.
that's a pretty unique quality, I think, for techie nerds, if I can say it that way.
Well, and I just want to add she has some musical talent as
Yep.
well, and the mix of that creativity along with the
All right.
development
So
side
tell
of
us
it.
about that. Are you a player? Do you have an instrument or?
Well, okay, so I'm going to spoil all future fun fact things in my career. I actually grew up playing the accordion. Um, I know it's crazy. So I played that many, many years. And the story my mom says, and I think it's probably true because she doesn't lie, but I wanted to play the accordion because she did, and I wanted to do everything that, when you're 5 years old, you want to do what your mom does.
Sure.
But she hated the accordion. She's like, oh my God, you don't want to play that. And so she said, you have to play 2 years of piano first. And I'm like, but I didn't want to. I wanted to play the accordion. And so after 2 years of lessons, literally to the day, I was like, okay, I'm ready for my accordion. So I've done that. I mean, I've stopped like when I was probably in my teens. But I used to teach piano lessons. I used to teach preschool little people. So just that used to be sort of a fun little hobby that I did. But now Great America keeps me too busy.
So now you got both sides of the brain working. You've got the engineering side of the brain, the IQ, and you've got the musical side of the brain. So as you're growing up, and I asked Jenny this question, so I'm going to get this out of the way right now because first of all, accordion is a very popular instrument for Italians, right? So if you
Oh,
yeah, I mean if you know anything about Italy, you see people walking around with some accordion someplace. So obviously, I am of the age where I love the Rat Pack and Sinatra. So, do you have a favorite song in the Sinatra genre, and why?
I do. So my favorite song is Moon River. And I know it wasn't originally by him, but I like his version. And I've liked that literally since I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. And it comes down to my accordion. It sounds beautiful on an accordion, by the way. But as an adult, I read an article and it made me love the song even more because there's kind of two facets of it. The first one is it means sort of looking at the past and looking at the history and how do you navigate that? I'm like, oh, I totally love that. And then the other thing is, I guess I read a story about Breakfast at Tiffany's Audrey Hepburn. The first time she played or sang that, sang and played that song in the movie, some movie producer said, "Oh my God, that was horrible. You can't do it." And she was like, "Over my dead body." And I love that concept of fighting for what you believe in. So I already liked the song because I thought it was just a pretty song. But now there's like all these things that I'd read in this article years ago that I'm like, oh, I really like that song.
Well, the song is great. The music is great, but the lyrics are really, really very, very good. I mean, it's a strong song if you actually listen to the lyrics. So good. So, what other music do you like besides Sinatra? What AC/DC strikes you as something you like, or what's the next version for you?
I am an acoustic fan is my first choice. So like the coffee house on Spotify, like that's where I
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Um, I in my imaginary world, I become an acoustic singer, even though I can't sing at all. And I actually started taking guitar lessons about a year ago because I've always wanted to play the guitar and I've never been able to master that. So I'm trying. I'm not great, and I definitely can't
So,
sing.
so Jenny, obviously you know her very well, and would you say that the musical part of her life is a very prominent part of her life and yours?
Absolutely. I'm a little bit disappointed, though. I will say that I've never actually seen Tawnya play the accordion
Nor will
or the
you ever.
piano,
I'm just gonna say
but
that.
I know she has a love for music, and we share some of that love. So,
Well, you know what? Maybe at ECS 23, we're going to have to put a band together.
well, yeah, you're bringing the band together, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so maybe Tawnya could be a part of that.
I think so.
Not playing an accordion.
We know Ed can sing. Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, we could skip the accordion, but
Right.
we'll wheel a piano out for you. So when you're looking at your day, and both of you are obviously very involved with the industry. You're everywhere. You're talking with people all the time, trying to find ways to bring solutions or build better relationships. And when I hear things in the marketplace, people are always coming down to, well, they do this well, or they do that well, or their rate card isn't good enough, or, and all of that. And one of the things that kind of inspires me is the fact that Great America constantly is you're driving every attempt to be competitive in every segment of the business. Whether it's financing software or financing hardware, you're sensitive to the rates. But the one thing that's just absolutely overwhelming is your focus on making it easy to work with people. And I've never seen a group culturally do as well as Great America across the board. So when you look at that, and Tawnya, I'll come back to you, what inspires you? Where do you find that inspiration inside of the company or inside yourself? And am I right? Is it pretty common across the board?
I would say it's pretty common across the board. I think that inspiration comes from the fact that we are an innovative company. We're constantly talking about innovation. What can we continue to do? What's vital for our customer success, right? And what can we bring to the table, whether it be tools, resources, financial solutions, to help them create that greater success in their environments. And then that filters down to our teams, right? Our front facing teams are very focused on understanding the needs of our customers and where they're going and using that information to bring information and intel to us on maybe how we should be thinking about life, how we should be thinking about our go to market strategy. And so it's just that constant, I would say, constant ingrainment that we are an innovative company. We've, we're, we've got a culture focused on growth derived through innovation, right? And that is for the purpose of helping our customers create greater success. And then when you think about what it does for our culture, it's really exciting because people see that as a growth opportunity for themselves, right? When they think about the development and the opportunities that they have at hand here. And so it all goes hand in hand. And I think, I will just say that let Tawnya speak to a little bit of on additional ways that we gain that intel, because the passion that she has for our customers and the knowledge that she has on the IT side, not only the IT side, but the business knowledge, right? And continuing to understand what they need is where a good portion of our solutions and our resources come from. She's driving a lot of that.
Well, follow up from you, Tawnya, because I got a couple of questions after that, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I think fundamentally we're all people, right? And people want to try to find the easiest way to get something done. They don't look for the hard way to do it. And so we're all consumers, we all buy stuff. Financing is just buying something. And so I think we've really seen that consumer mentality bleed into the business world a lot faster, probably because of the pandemic. That probably was an accelerant. But people want to interact in their business world the same way they interact in their personal world. And so I think, as we learn apps, as we learn things, how to do it better, I think the expectation just skyrockets of what our customers are expecting from us, whether they tell us that or not. And so I think if we look at things from the lens of our customer, how would we want to interact with us? And so I think that's really what drives us is if we look at it and go, gosh, that seems really painful. Um, that's where we're going to try to make it less painful. And so I think if you've got, 600 plus people thinking like that, I think you can't help but be innovative.
So when you raise an interesting topic, do you think coming out of the pandemic, um, do you find people more willing, more open, more conversation, but greater conversation? Are you finding a bigger openness or the opposite? Are people more inviting, inspiration and inviting content? You know,
No, I think people change occurred to us, right?
yeah,
And we may not have liked it, but we adapted to it.
yeah.
And so I think if you look at sort of that spectrum of willingness of a person, no matter where they started on that spectrum, they got a little more willing, because they had to. And so I feel like people are looking for opportunities to improve, to be better, to how do we make something that was very painful before less painful? How do we invest the time, even though it is sort of a time investment to get us there, but it's worth it in the end? So I definitely think that people are a lot more open to conversations about how to change because they've been changing and they have recognized it was okay. I mean, we did survive it. So how do we do it again?
How about you, Jenny? Do you feel that people are more open and responsive? Somebody said this to me the other day. I find that people are less judgmental, and I thought that was an interesting word in a business environment. How does that strike you?
Less judgmental, um, meaning coming through the pandemic or prior to the pandemic, or
Yeah.
in what sense?
So prior to the pandemic, the conversation I was having prior to the pandemic, people were very
Yeah.
quick to judge, say, no, I don't want that. I'm not in, even though they may not have verbalized it, but their attitude was move on, right? But today, it seems like on the other side of the pandemic, people are more, or less, I should say, judgmental. They're more open to a conversation. They'll take a little bit more time. They'll study it a little bit more carefully. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, as Tawnya mentioned, when you think about how things have evolved through the pandemic, and especially as it relates to technology, right? Um, I think it's just created a desire for people to understand better and to slow down. And I think that takes some of that judgment out of it, if you will. When you ask me the question, do I feel like people or our customers have been more open to those conversations as we're coming through this? I would say definitely. One thing that gets me excited is the fact that we have our customers reaching out to us for advice more so than before the pandemic. That occurred before the pandemic. A lot of times we were going into the organization asking a lot of the questions. Now they're reaching out to us as consultants, right? Can you come into my organization, walk through my process flow, walk through my go-to-market, and give me ideas on what we can do? How can I be more effective? How can I be more efficient?
That is awesome. Yeah, I kind of have that same feeling. So it's good to hear that that's happening. You're partnering.
That's the fun part of it, because that's what we're not just out there selling financing, right? We want to be trusted advisors to them. We want to be consultants to them to a certain level.
So, Tawnya, Jennie, as we basically kind of wind down here a little bit, tell me a little bit about your thoughts and hopes, expectations for the rest of this year, either personally or as they apply professionally. What are you really, really looking forward to having fun with and making some cool things happen? So, what are your thoughts about that? Especially when Tawnya, when you're starting to take a look at this, the speed of which technology is
Yeah.
moving. So what kind of fun are you looking forward to seeing for yourself?
Well, I can tell you, from a Great America perspective, we are building some really cool tools. In fact, prior to this, I had just left a demo where we kind of showed the wireframes of kind of some new portal and ways to interact with us. And it's really exciting about how we can use technology to make things faster, to reduce the number of steps, which in turn reduces errors, increases accuracy. So I think that's fantastic. I'm excited for kind of the suite of products that we're going to be able to offer our customers.
Phenomenal. Is it along the lines of AI or
There
e-commerce
will
or all
be
of that?
AI included, but that is not a standalone. That is just as part of the process. And I think when people look at technology, they need to be figuring out how does that, complement what they're already doing rather than just sort of sticking something in. And so we're really looking at that full suite of complementary things that dealers are going to be able to better manage their business through.
Awesome. And what about you personally? Do you have anything like a trip to Italy or anything like that?
I actually have a trip to Italy in 2 weeks. Yes. But but it's not it's a happy sad. My daughter is doing study abroad for the fall semester. So I'm taking her, so that'll be happy, but I'll probably be crying the whole time we're there because I know I have to leave her there.
So are we talking Florence or Milan?
She's going to Rome, and then
Rome?
we're going to visit as a family at Thanksgiving. So I will get to see her a little bit, but we're getting a couple trips to Italy in this fall. So yay.
Well, if you need any guide, some kind of guide, I'm happy to offer my services. So,
Uh, you're going to regret that because I will take
I know some
She's going to
restaurants.
be
I am not a
tapping into
shy
you.
person.
Yeah, yeah. So Jenny, how about you?
Uh,
What's getting you really excited about the rest of this year? And for yourself personally, and if you're going to Italy, maybe you're going with Tanya, that's great. But what are your thoughts and recommendations or counsel, I guess, for the industry? And Jenny, you're you're one of the legends in our business. So tremendous appreciation and respect for everything that you do. So what do you see good for Jenny in this next 6 months?
well, I will say what is good for Jenny and what I get really excited about is Tanya's execution on our continued evolution as we think about technology, because it's ultimately going to make my life easier. That starts with the life of the team members that are delivering that experience to our customers every day, right? So we're very customized as an organization, and sometimes that customization leads to manual processes. And so we do it and we can do it, but I look forward to becoming more and more automated, as well as driving that automation to our customers, right? Because that's only going to allow us to get even more creative in what we can bring to the marketplace and to be able to execute on that creativity. So I get excited about that.
So what's your advice to the dealer community for the rest of this year? So if you had two or three things that you said, you know what, guys, ladies, you really need to focus on this the rest of this year. These are the things that are strategically important for growth. So Jenny, what would you be telling that to dealer community if you could?
I would say continue to keep focused on the strategy, right? And continue to embrace the automation that can come with technology. These guys are selling technology every day, but they're moving really fast in their sales machines, right? And sometimes it's hard to slow down. So we've talked about how a lot of these dealerships have slowed down through the pandemic really to focus on their processes and their efficiencies and effectiveness. Well, guess what? Things are getting back to being really, really busy. And so when that happens, we get back in that wheel, right? And we're spinning the wheel and we forget to slow down and take the time to pause to really understand what's going on out there and what our customers want to continue to see from us. So that would be the biggest advice that I have. We've seen a lot of dealers through this time focus on strategy. And that business plan that Tawnya talked about earlier, let's not lose that focus.
Well, and if I could add, I hear about diversification, sustainability, and inclusion, and for us at the Executive Connection Summit, I know that's going to be a big thing for us as we present what we do. I believe that that's a critically important part of what Great America has been focused on too. Is that safe to say, Jennie?
It is.
So taking that a little bit forward, Tawnya, will let you offer your counsel, for the dealer community. And I would add probably a little bit of another question or emphasis. You've got the big dealers, the mega dealers, the mid-sized dealers, and then you've got this whole tier of something in between. So that's kind of hard to say, you should do this when you have all those different variables. But considering big and small, M&S or no M&S, from your perspective, what are the top three things you would say if you're in or not in?
Let me start with the advice part. I kind of have two pieces. The first one is yes, you need to be thinking about diversification. I don't think anyone would probably disagree with that. But I would just challenge them to think beyond the product line. What does it take to be successful with that? So if you were to look at somebody who sells that product or service and that's all they do, and they're successful doing it, what does that look like? And then really being honest with yourself about your own organization. Does your organization look like that? If they don't, that's not necessarily bad, but can you incorporate characteristics to make it look like that? Or do you offer it in a different way that you don't need to look like that? But really, it's more than just what you're selling. I mean, our channel is a sales machine. We can sell a lot. The question is, can we support what we're selling successfully? So that would be my first thing. My second thing is really evaluate the partners that you are working with. I know rates have been challenging, getting equipment has been challenging, but there's more than just the financial aspect of a transaction. And so just making sure that whoever your software partners are, whoever your finance partners are, whoever your implementation partners are, really make sure that you are working with the people that will help you drive your business further. There's always, trade-offs. Very few are a perfect fit. And so what are the trade-offs that fit best with your business?
I like that. And if you look at the OEM side of the business, so clearly everything is kind of working hand in hand, right? Supply chain with OEMs, and the final perspective, are the dealers better empowered, actually, in your opinion, to move faster, quicker, better than the OEMs? Is this the
Good
time of the
question.
dealer?
I think it depends on what the thing is that they're moving with. If it requires a ton of capital, the OEM might be in a better position. But if it requires flexibility, then the dealer might be in a better position. So again, I think that it just depends on what you're evaluating. And no, and I think if there was one characteristic that I could give to people is kind of self-awareness. I feel like that doesn't always exist. And I think self-awareness as a business is really important, not just as individuals. And so being honest with yourself, what are your flaws as a business? What are your strengths? How do you leverage your strengths? How do you make your flaws not fatal? I mean, I feel like the sooner business owners are self-aware, they're going to be more successful because they can adapt as necessary.
And Jenny, how about you? How do you feel about that? The speed and swiftness of, pivoting at a dealer level versus a large corporation, if I could say it that way.
I just think it depends on the entity. It depends on the dealership, right? I mean, I've seen it. You think about thinking of the strategy and the focus, and we deal with dealers of all sizes. I've seen dealers, less than 5 million in annual revenue be much more strategic and focused than one that's producing 90 million. And so I think it just depends on the entity and
Okay, so final thoughts from you, random, whatever you want. If you were a tree, what would you be? I'm kidding, but if you, any kind of random thought that you have that you want to share with your clients in the industry. So Jenny, I'll start with you.
any random thought. I would say, right? I feel like things are getting back to normal more every day. We continue to have challenges, and I just wish everybody the best in getting back to that uninterrupted growth, which is what you hear in every conversation that you have these days.
Awesome. And Tawnya, how about you? Random thought?
We're all just people. So, we may be businesses, but engaging with people as people, the needs people have, their people needs. And so not overcomplicating things.
I love it.
Just finding people and engaging with them to be, successful.
Well, we are just people. And if you saw Maurice Allen's podcast, basically here you got a championship golfer, and we were
Yeah.
talking about all of these different things, and he says, it's just another putt.
Yeah.
It's just another day, just another person, and you make it as best you can. So, ladies, I really appreciate it. I think that there's so much fun that's coming down the pike this year, yet to be had. I'm looking forward to the Executive Connection Summit. So thank you again for all of that. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't say Great America has been a phenomenal supporter of the Jillian Fund and the ride. So we're very grateful for that. And Tawnya, anything I can do to help you on the IT side or tech side, just let me know.
I thought you were going to say on the Italy side, because I'm already forming my questions.
Well, I'm happy to help anyone with Italy trip. So there are a couple of people who have asked me,
But he wants to go with you.
but I have to go with. Yeah, that's part of the deal. Anyway, I really appreciate your time. Great America, clearly, if I can say it, I think I have a pretty clear judgment, for the partners that we work with. You guys have historically been heads and shoulders above pretty much everybody out there. It's an honor for me to work with you. It's an honor for me to basically, kind of create things like ECS and all of that. And more importantly, it's an honor. We're just people. So I appreciate your friendship, your support, and let's have a good one. Let's finish this up. So thank you,
We
ladies.
appreciate your support, Mike. Thank you very much.
My
We
pleasure.
appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure. So thank you.
Thank